Hey guys, is this you? Then this is the video for you. First, to find everything, go to build and then press on this icon here. Now we can start. First, we have the start position. This is self-explanatory, but I'm still gonna say it. If you were to place this in a level, you'd start from there in normal mode / playtest mode. Now the color trigger. It's used for changing the color of color channels. Place it and click edit object. This will be used for most triggers. When you open it, you're probably gonna get shocked, but I'm gonna try to explain everything. The big circle in the middle is used to select the color. The outer ring changes the color. The inner circle changes the brightness. The fade time just means how long the color change is going to last. To the right you can see opacity, which just means how much you can see through it. Below that is the color ID. This is just the color channel you want to change. If you click on the plus icon, you come to this screen. Here you can choose between special color channels like background, ground 1 and 2, etc. for the checkboxes. Copy color will remove the color selector and copy the color of the color channel ID and give you a few more options to play around with. Hue just acts like if you would circle around the outer ring. Brightness just makes it more or less bright. Saturation makes the color more or less vibrant. Blending is a little complicated, so I suggest you watch Tried's video about that. Player color 1 and 2 changes the color channel to the according player color. Touch trigger means that you have to touch the trigger for it to activate. Spawn trigger makes it so that you have to activate it using a spawn trigger, which I will cover later. On to the move trigger. Move X moves the group ID to the left or right. 10 is equal to 1 grid space. Move Y moves the group ID up or down. 10 is again equal to 1 grid space. Lock to player X and Y makes it follow the player movement on the according axis. Move time is the time the object will have to move. Less time equals faster movement. Target group ID is the group ID you want to move. I will not be going over touch and spawn as I've already done that. If you click on the Use Target in the top right corner, the top half of the interface will change. Target pause group ID is the group you want to move to. X and Y makes the move trigger only move in the X/Y coordinates. Now the stop trigger. The stop trigger stops certain triggers such as move, rotate, follow, etc. First you will have a group ID in the middle. There you put the group ID of the trigger you want to stop in. The pulse trigger is similar to the color trigger but has some changes. The color selector stays the same. Copy and paste just copy/pastes whatever color is currently in your clipboard. Fade in is the time the pulse fades in. Hold is the time the pulse stays. Fade out is the time the pulse fades out. If you click exclusive, the color channel will only apply to the base of the object using the color channel. Above that is channel/group. If you pick channel, a color channel will be used. If you pick group, a group will be used. By clicking on HSV instead of color, the top half changes. You again have hue, saturation and brightness. The color ID on the top right is now the color you want to copy and modify using HSV. The alpha trigger makes things more see-through. For the group ID, you set it to the group you want to be more/less visible. Fade time is the time that it takes for the alpha trigger to change the opacity. Opacity means how much you can see through it. 1.00 is equal to solid. 0.00 is equal to invisible. The toggle trigger makes things activate/deactivate, so you can't interact with the group anymore. For the group ID, you set it to the group you want to activate/deactivate. On to the spawn trigger. It's used for activating other triggers set to spawn trigger. The group is the group of triggers you want to be activated. Delay is how long the trigger waits before activating the group. Editor disable makes it not work in the editor. On to the rotate trigger. It's used to rotate groups. The degrees mean how much it should turn. 360 is equal to a full rotation. Times 360 means how often it should turn 360 degrees. Easing is again complicated and I suggest you play around with it. Target group ID is the group you want to rotate. Center group ID is the group you want to rotate the target group ID around. This can only be one object. The follow trigger is used to make a group follow the movement of another group. X mod is the amount the group should move with the other group. 1.00 is equal to the same movement, and 0.50 is equal to half the movement. This is the same for Y mod, just in the other coordinate. Target group ID is the group you want to move with another. Follow group ID is the group you want to follow. The shake trigger is used to shake the screen. This only works in normal mode, not the editor. Strength is how strong the shake is. Interval is how often it shakes. Duration means the time the shake lasts for. Don't let the animate trigger fool you. It's not used for animation. That comes in 2.2. Rather, it's used to make two specific objects have a different preset animation. First, the group ID, which is the group of the monsters. There's the bat and the big beast. First, we're going to cover the big beast. Animation ID 0, this makes the beast bite over and over. Animation ID 1, this makes the beast attack. Animation ID 2, this makes the beast stop the attack. Animation ID 3, this makes the beast idle. Now to the bat. Animation ID 0, this makes the bat idle. These range from 1 to 2. Animation ID 3, this makes the bat attack. Ranges from 3 to 4. Animation ID 5, this makes the bat stop the attack. Animation ID 6, this makes the bat sleep. Animation ID 7, this makes the bat loop sleeping. To follow player Y trigger. It's used to make a group follow the Y position of a player. Speed is used to set the speed the group moves at. 1.000 is equal to the same. 0.500 is equal to half. Delay is the time the trigger waits before copying the player's Y coordinate. The offset is how much the group is above or below the player. 10 is equal to 1 grid space. Max speed limits the speed the group can move at. Onto the touch trigger. This activates when the player clicks. Group ID is the ID you want to turn off/on. This can be set in the bottom right corner. Hold mode makes it so when the player presses it turns off/on. When the player releases, it does the opposite. With the dual mode, it works like this. You have a dual and you press on the right side and the trigger activates. On the left, the player jumps. Now the count trigger. The count trigger is used to count. Now we have to skip 2 triggers, which we will come to later, and place the object that looks like a 0. Set this to the next free number. Go back to the count trigger and put that number in the item ID. The target group is the group you want to activate/deactivate. The target count is the number you want to have when the group activates. The instant count trigger is similar to the count trigger. Actually, there's only one change, and it's that you can choose if you want the group to activate when the number is equal, larger, or smaller than the target count. The pickup trigger is the way to increase the item ID's number. For the item ID, you put the ID from the object that looks like a 0. Count is how much you want to add/subtract. The collision trigger is used to detect collisions between collision blocks. You can find these blocks to the right of the trigger. Place it and edit object. Set the block ID to the next free with the plus icon. Check the dynamic checkbox if the collision block will move around. Place a second collision block and do the same. Open the collision trigger. Block A ID and block B ID are the 2 collision block IDs you've just chosen. Put them in any order, it doesn't matter. The target ID is the group you want to activate/deactivate. Trigger on exit triggers the group when the collision block stops colliding with the other. The on death trigger is used to display things when you die. The group ID is the group you want to activate/deactivate when you die. Disable/enable player trail makes the player trail invisible/visible. Show/hide player makes the player visible/invisible. Background effects are these particles in some game modes. And now the effect blocks, or whatever they're called.